Great. Hi there, Howard. How are you? Welcome to Space R, Space Renaissance Initiative. It's great to have you here with us. You come here with really some significant experience. I had an opportunity to listen to one of, a couple of them, but one at length, an interview you did some time back with Adriano, and I, really excited about this evening for you to spend 15 minutes really to, share with us some of your work, how you started, and so that our students can get to see and learn a little bit about you as a mentor. So welcome. Thanks for spending the time this evening.
Thanks, Corrinne.
So let's go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, okay.
No, go ahead.
You want me to give you a brief abstract of what it is that a student can expect, or why it is that a student would want to have anything to do with me? Basically, it's this. I fly over the face of all of the sciences that I, with a limited brain, can comprehend. And from all of those tiny little isolated specializations, I try to conceive a big picture, to show you the grand landscape, to show you where we've come from 13.7 billion years of existence. That is the protons right now. We're born in the first flick of the Big Bang. So you are 13.7 billion years old, and where we're going, and what humanity's relationship to the cosmos is. So I started in theoretical physics and microbiology at the age of 10. Science has been my life. I started out consuming 2 books a day, much to the chagrin of my teachers, since I didn't pay any attention to them. I simply read books under the school desk. And by now, I've published or given lectures at scholarly conferences in 12 different fields, including things like quantum physics, cosmology, evolutionary, biology, neuroscience, psychology, governance, and of course, information science, and of course, aerospace. I was kidnapped about 15 years ago by Buzz Aldrin, who convinced me to found an activist group in the space industry. It's called the Space Development Steering Committee. Edgar Mitchell, who was the 6th man on the moon, was another one of our major supporters. It's had people involved from the National Science Foundation, the National Space Society, NASA, and the DoD, the Department of Defense. And also, because I was curious about mass human passion, I went into a field that I knew nothing about at one point, on a sort of scientific expedition into the roots of the human soul. And I founded the biggest PR firm in the music industry and worked with Michael Jackson, Prince, Bob Marley, Bette Midler, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss, Queen, Run DMC, Billy Joel, Billy Idol, Paul Simon, Peter Gabriel, etc. And it was a fascinating field expedition into mass human passion. So if you like a big overview, I am heavily overbooked. It's very hard for me to find any spare time, even to breathe. But if the big overview, the big picture is something that interests you, then that's my specialty.
Some of the stuff that you have done has to do with, is really exciting. And I mean, you talked about people in the entertainment thing. That's really curious. Like, how did that evolve into, getting you to that point?
Well, it was a series of accidents. I was kidnapped by the poet in residence at NYU. I'd spent my life in science up to that point. Mm-hmm. Poetry was extremely important to me, and he thought I would be the next published poet to come out of NYU. And one day he said, wait until everybody leaves the classroom and then shut the door. I need to talk to you. It did not sound like Corrinne, not at all. So I sat down in the bawling out seat after everybody left, and I'd closed the door. And he said, look, you, last year I asked you to be on the staff of the literary magazine. This year I'm telling you, you're the editor of the literary magazine. You don't even have a faculty advisor. The minute you walk out that door, you're it. Now walk out that door. And I did, and I looked very confused. A student found me in the corridor looking dazed and said, you look like something's wrong, could I help you? And he asked a simple question. If you could do anything you wanted with this magazine, what would it be? And I said it would be a picture book. So I went out and hunted down a bunch of artists in addition to a bunch of poets and writers for the magazine. And this gave me a choice point. I had fellowships in neuroscience at 4 different grad schools. And I regarded grad school as an Auschwitz for the mind, because my interest was mass human passions, mass human behavior. And there was no way I was going to get near the ecstatic passions, the power, the force of history, by giving paper and pencil tests to 22 college students for the rest of my life, which is what I would have been consigned to by graduate school. So I went into a field I knew nothing about, popular culture, and eventually I founded the biggest PR firm in the music industry. A person who knew nothing about popular culture, hadn't listened to that form of music. I listened to Rachmaninoff, Bartok, and Stravinsky. And but when you bring science into a field that's never had it before, that's operated on a set of conventions and cliches, you can see through those conventions and cliches, discard the ones that don't work, keep the ones that do work, improve on them, and you can outdo your competitors at least 10 to 1.
So you really have done a lot of interesting things and cool things. Part of what some of the things that I'm involved with and some of my colleagues, and I know you have your thought process on certain aspect of energy and so on, but sort of with STEAM, right? We talk a lot about STEM, but STEAM takes in the artistic and the arts and the creative aspect of this. And I find it really exciting in the sense that I remember while going through that doctoral journey, one of the things that they told us at the very beginning was we have to get to that childhood phase of the ability of learning to really daydream again, right? And what I have found is that actually helps in terms of communication skills and how really effective you are at helping whomever it is that you're teaching or you're working with or whatever project you on to bring that really to life and really see how that really, comes out to be really a good thing. I guess that's one of the reasons I'm also excited to talk to you, because while I'm not as creative as many, I do have some aspect of that, and I do enjoy the ability to fuse both.
And I find they're extremely valuable. For example, I put together a 100-page visual manifesto for the future of life and the future of humanity called Garden the Solar System, Green the Galaxy. It's been adopted as the official vision of the National Space Society. Why is it 100 pictures? Because 100 pictures give you a vision. And it is our job. We are the only species that can get life out of the gravity well. We are the only species. Look, we've taken this, a poison pill of stone, a barren ball of rock, a truly hostile place filled with poisons like phosphorus and sulfur. And life, 4 billion years ago, began to take those poisons and turn them into pistons in the process of life. And that's the obligation of all of us. We are descended from those creatures 4 billion years ago. And they were catastrophe tamers, they were disaster riders. So we have to be catastrophe tamers and disaster riders too. But this planet has far more resources than environmentalists think. Bacteria right now, 12 miles beneath your feet and mine, are turning basalt and granite, raw rock, into biostuff. They're kidnapping, seducing, and recruiting dead atoms into the process of life, into the molecules of life. If they have enough vision to do that, we should have enough vision to take other barren, bald, and hostile places and turn them fruitful and multiply in those spaces. We've done a modest amount of greening in 4 billion years on this particular poison pill of stone. There are unending poison pills of stone just above our heads, waiting to be groomed and greened. And we are the only species that can get ecosystems to those bald, barren, hostile balls of stone. Bacteria can do all kinds of amazing research and development, but they cannot fly. Birds can fly, but they cannot get beyond the atmosphere. They depend on the atmosphere for their buoyancy, for their lift. So if we do not become the Johnny Appleseeds of life through space, we will have failed in our mission completely. And where does the art come into this? Remember, I art directed this. That was my primary role in putting this manifesto together. It's only 2,800 words long, very short. It's the pictures that make it what it is. But of course, pictures are nothing without captions, Corrinne. And these pictures are captioned in a way that allows you to perceive things in a way you may never have perceived them before. Now, when I was 10, A book appeared in my lap one day in my family's living room, and it said the first two rules of science are these: the truth at any price, including the price of your life, and look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. That second rule of science, look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. That's what you were talking about when you were talking about reawakening the daydreams in people. And there are two branches of human endeavor that are committed to looking at things right under our nose as if we've never seen them before. They are science, which depends on unique perspectives. The scientists who create paradigm shifts come up with a unique point of view from which to see things that makes everything seem something new, that puts everything in a new perspective, in a vast scheme of meaning. That's what artists do too. Art is the first tool we use to grab hold of the ineffable, of the impossible, of the inexpressible, and bring it into the realm of human expression, of human symbol work. And it's then science is another form of symbol work, but it depends on the arts to bring the wild things of human nature and of nature itself into the realm of what we can see and discuss. And once it is wrestled in through poetry or through novels or through films, then we who regard ourselves as scientists can grapple with it for the first time.
It's all interesting and fascinating to me, and I guess you're probably going to have to mentor me too with some of these things. I have a saying on one of I have a lifestyle brand line, and it focuses a little bit more on, for the time, not everything will be on renewables, so to speak. So I have an organic t-shirt line as part of my product line. And one of the sayings or the adages that I have is, I love the sciences, but they don't love me back. I'm always very excited by them. The same thing you're talking about is that they capture the imagination. I chase them for a little bit, whether I was chasing geology or archaeology, whatever it is. So I look at things, and I'm audiovisual, so the pictures are fantastic, and I have to really tell and emit those stories, right? And then the other is really looking at them through films or documentaries and so on, and that's how I learn, and that's how I build my skill sets to help in terms of the business of things that I'm involved with, because I do work with scientists, engineers, and so on. And if that's the appreciation I have for it. The technical bit you have, I don't have it. So I think that's one of the things that are so important to, our development or youth development, is for parents to really, or their grandparents or whomever it is, that's that guardian, to understand that this is something that's really exciting and part of what is becoming, what will be a part of their future, that they need to understand and see how they really work and go hand in hand.
Well, I agree with you. A couple of things I'd like people who are thinking about a mentorship to know. I'm the author of 7 books. And whoops, what happened to our screen just went out for a second. Yes, you're still there. So I'm the author of 7 books. I appear on 545 radio stations on a weekly basis. I'm about to do, I think, my 348th appearance in a few hours.
Wow.
The highest rated overnight talk radio show in North America. And you too can do all these things if you have the ability to tap all of your curiosities at once and not allow anybody to trap you into a training that conformity enforces you and makes you just another gopher digging a hole so deep that all you can see is the walls of the tunnel around you. That's what we do when we specialize. I prefer to be the eagle flying over the landscape, seeing all of those gopher holes as pixels in a very, very, very big picture. And anything I can do, you can do better.
As you shared with the mentorship bit, it is definitely to have a mentor who will help you, especially develop the curiosities, I think is very critical. I remember a quick story. This is not about me, it's about you, but to say why it's so important to have someone like yourself be a part of that team is, I remember studying business. One of what we have to do a bunch of maths, and one, I think it was my calculus class. And I think the professor realized I must have been struggling or so on with it. I never ask. I can figure stuff out by myself, and I typically do. If I need help, I'll ask for help. And he came over and asked just a simple whatever question it was. And with his explanation, and I think the ability to understand probably where I was coming from and explain it in such a way that I'm not going to say mathematics was never a problem, but it made it a lot easier to really understand where I was having the hiccup solving, whatever the problem was at that time. So it's really great when you have a mentor that can help you to grow, because curiosity is something that is what helps you to explore and really build transferable skills.
Well, the other thing you need in order to make things happen is persistence and a certain amount of self-discipline. Because if you take on a goal that it seems impossible, and you are able to break it down into a series of tiny steps, and you take one tiny step a day toward that goal, and you do it for years or decades, eventually the odds are very good you'll achieve that goal.
Now, two quick things, I guess, before we wrap up. And one is I want to go a little bit back to, I'm really fascinated, actually, and you mentioned it again and you shared about the fact that we as human beings have so much more to offer, right? And to help in terms of the advancement in terms of space. I really never thought about it in terms of like the context in which you put it, in terms of what bacteria can do, it's limited or so on in the adaptation process. Kind of where do you see us going in the next, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years? What do you see that evolution looking something like?
I think there is one man with a vision on this planet that's going to take us way beyond anything we've dreamed of before, and his name is Elon Musk. He's developing a transport vehicle called the Starship. It's designed to carry 100 passengers or 110 tons of cargo. And it is designed so that it can go into space, meet a refueling tanker made of, guess what, another Starship, refuel and go anywhere in the solar system and land and take off again and come back home with a certain amount of refueling. And once that becomes the bus of the mid-21st century, everything about the relationship between humankind, life itself, and the solar system in which we live, everything will change dramatically.
It's exciting times, I think, when you look at it, especially I'm one that look at tech or science where it helps to advance. It means there is a learning curve, and we have to get everyone to kind of fast track a little bit to get to what's needed to help to get to the next level. And a lot of times we are very apprehensive because we think change is always a bad thing when it's usually not. There are certain things where it takes in, fairness, equity, or, justice, or looking out for the best interests for each other versus being selfish that comes into play. And that comes under policies and regulations and so on, economics as well. Any last thought or you want to share with us before we wrap up to future mentees?
Well, just a civilization that goes up, or that looks up, goes up. A civilization that looks down, goes down. We have been looking down very resolutely for the last 50 years or so. And it is time for us to look up and aspire high, 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 high.
All right, sounds exciting. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm actually looking forward to, talking with you a little bit more and checking out some more of your work. It sounds really fantastic and fun. And I'm excited. Have fun at your next talk this evening.
My radio
and
show.
Thank
right.
you, your radio show. And it was wonderful having you here. Have a great evening.
Okay, thanks, Corrinne. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.